Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Are there any matters that we need to take up before we bring jurors?
No, on behalf of the state.
All right, let's bring jurors, please. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. You may have wondered yesterday why I called for a break at 4:30 and then called for another witness at 5. One of my jobs is time management, and I thought we had another hour to go. I apologize. Sometimes I just love my job too much, maybe. So in any event, I'll try to do better today and take breaks at the right time. But in any event, we're ready, I believe, to call for further witnesses for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. We call Ktina, Rainey. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Hamburger?
Good morning, Miss Rainey.
Good morning.
Will you please tell the jury your full name?
Ktina, Rainey.
And how are you related to Nathan Holden?
That is my brother. We share the same father.
Okay. So are one of you older than the other, I assume? Which one?
Yes, he's older than me by 6 years.
Okay. And did you and Nate grow up together?
We did.
Tell me about how you came to live together as half-siblings.
My father and his mother was together. My father conceived me outside of the home, but brought me back to that home and raised me. So me and Nathan grew up in the same home. His mother basically raised me. His mother and my father, our father.
So you were in the full custody of your father.
Yes, ma'am.
Nathaniel Carroll is your father, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's also Nate's father.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you didn't go back and forth between your father's home and your mother's home. You were just in
No, ma'am. My
the Carroll
father
home.
and Antoinette raised me.
Okay. And Antoinette is Nate Holden's mother?
Yes, ma'am.
And does she also go by Goldie?
Goldie. Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you call her?
Go.
So when you were in the home being raised by Goldie and Nathaniel, was your dad home much?
Not quite often. He worked. Outside of work, he was in and out. He wasn't always home. Depending on the day, depending on the situation. Some days he was, some days he wasn't.
Mm-hmm. What about Goldie?
She worked as well. She was more home than he was. She was basically the one who, was home, cooking, cleaning, helping us with homework, getting us ready for school, things in that nature. She was more home than he was.
Mm-hmm. And were you said that you were conceived while Nathaniel was in a relationship with Goldie.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Were Nathaniel and Goldie married?
They were not.
But they were in a long-term relationship
Long-term, yes,
and
ma'am.
lived together, right?
Yes, ma'am.
At sort of a common law marriage,
Common
would
law
you call
marriage.
it that?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you aware of your father having relationships outside of that relationship with Goldie?
Well, then I was little, so, I was not aware of things like that. I knew no knowledge. I knew that, my mother was somebody else. It wasn't Goldie. Also, my other brother who testified, he was conceived outside of the home, so apparently there was other relations outside of him and Goldie.
So you're talking about your brother Jamal?
Yes, ma'am.
And how close in age are you and Jamal?
We're actually born in the same year. He's born in April. I was born in December.
So your father had conceived 2 children
Outside of the home.
at the same time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. At some point, did you become aware that Goldie had a drinking problem?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you become aware of that?
A lot of their arguments and disputes was behind her drinking, and her different actions outside of her normal actions kind of brought it to the light.
Mm-hmm. Would you see her drinking?
I had occasionally, not, an everyday drinker. When she did, it was kind of sociable. Sometimes it got a little out of hand, but not an everyday type thing.
Would she do most of her drinking on the weekends?
Yeah, on the weekends, or I guess if her and my dad wasn't on good terms, it was kind of like a shoulder for her, I guess.
But you did see her drunk?
Yes, I have.
And did you, on a regular basis?
Not on a regular basis, no, ma'am.
Well, you said her behavior changed when she was drinking?
Yeah, she would get a little feisty, slightly angry maybe. She would be different. She wouldn't be as, happy and happy-go excited as normal. Her mood and attitude would change.
And did her attitude change towards you depending on whether she was drinking?
Sometimes. Kind of, sort of. Sometimes I guess I would say I was the issue because I was daddy's girl. And it was, sometimes she would make it like, I got her in trouble. So sometimes she would, act a little different towards me.
Mm-hmm. And did you feel like that the difference in behavior was based on whether she was drinking or not?
Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned something about fights between Goldie and your dad, Nathaniel. Tell me about the fights.
I never seen too many of the fights with my eyes because I would always go hide. But I knew there were fights because I could hear them, and I would see the bruises or scratches or different things tore up in the house the next day. Not alone that, like I said, I could hear the arguing, and sometimes if it wasn't the drinking, it was something she may have done to me or said to me that caused the altercation. So I was aware of the fights, but I never really actually sat there and watched them because I would always run and hide.
So you said that sometimes the cause of the fight, the thing that got them started fighting, was her drinking?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that because your dad would complain about her drinking?
Well, not necessarily only her drinking, but her drinking would be because he stayed out all night or he didn't come home or, he wasn't always there with us. It wasn't just because she was drinking.
So are you saying that she would be drinking because she was upset with him?
Yes, ma'am.
And then he would be upset with her for the drinking?
Yes, ma'am, because when she drinks, she's like a little chihuahua.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
She's feisty. She can be a little angry bird.
I see. So she might be drinking and pick a fight.
Sometimes I felt like that, but to me it was like to seek attention.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So how would you know when you needed to run and hide? What would be happening?
I mean, because I could hear them arguing. I mean, you could hear things being thrown around. Just difference in the footsteps. You could tell when somebody's angry from, normally they would quietly walk to now it's heavy footsteps. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I would hear the arguing too, so I would know what's coming.
Mm-hmm. And where would you go?
Me and my brother Nathan, we shared bunk beds, and I would either get off of my top bunk and get on the bottom bunk with him, or I would get between the bunk beds and the wall.
You'd actually hide behind the bed?
Yes, ma'am.
And would these fights be occurring at night while you were sleeping?
Most of the time.
And how old were you when you're talking about this?
I can't tell your exact age. I know I was in elementary school when all of this was taking place.
So you might be woken up in the
In the
from your
middle of the
sleep
night. Yes, ma'am.
and hear them fighting,
Yes, ma'am.
and you'd hide.
Yes, ma'am.
How often would these fights occur?
I can't recall to this day. It wasn't a everyday type thing. Maybe every other weekend. Not necessarily to say that it would be a fight. Maybe it would just be an argument. I can't, like I said, I cannot recall exactly, if they fought every week or every weekend. It wasn't, a normal thing.
And what would so if you were hiding in your bed or between the bed and the wall, what would you be hearing?
A bunch of fussing, cussing, things getting thrown around, bunch of yelling. Just them arguing and basically, throwing each other around, throwing things around in the house.
How long would these fights last?
It all depended. Some nights Nathan would go in there and try to break it up. So on a good night, if he tried to break it up, it wouldn't go for so long. But I guess it just all depended on what was going through Goldie's mind, what was going through my dad's mind, or how long they even just fought until they both sat down. It differed.
Well, that you sort of anticipated my next question. I was going to ask, while you were hiding, what was your brother doing, your big brother?
Some nights he was comforting me, and some nights he was trying to break them up.
And
Just depending on how far it had got out of control.
Could you hear what he was trying to do to break them up?
Mainly trying to get Goldie and calm her down and, pull her away from the situation, talk to her, or, just going back and forth with my dad, trying to get him to let it go. But mainly him trying to get Goldie and calm her down.
And what would Nate's demeanor be while he was going back and forth between them?
I couldn't necessarily say his demeanor. I mean, I know he wasn't happy about the situation. You could tell he was frustrated and upset, that he was even seeing it or having to, break them apart.
And how old would Nate have been when you remember him trying to break up the fights?
If I was in elementary, he had to have been, the end of middle school, get ready to go into high school maybe.
You talked about Nate trying to comfort you. What would he do to comfort you?
Like I said, sometimes I would get in the bed with him and he would just tell me, it's going to be okay. Be quiet. Don't worry about it. I got you. It's going to be okay.
Was there something in particular that would happen if Goldie saw Nate comforting you?
It just depends on the situation. If the argument was about me, then she would tell him, she would just be like, don't talk to her, leave her alone. She the reason why this, she's the reason why that. It just depends on if this dispute was because I told my dad she did something to me, or I told my dad this. Like I said, some nights it was because I was daddy's girl and I was telling this or I was telling that. So it just all depended.
You felt like some of these fights were about you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if Nate tried to comfort you, Goldie would tell him not to.
Yes, ma'am.
So on the mornings after these fights, what were those mornings like?
I mean, a normal day for them, all depending on, the after effect of their bruises or how long the situation went on. My dad would still get up and go to work. If the situation wasn't as bad, Goldie would go to work. But if it was, a little more intense, then, those would be the days that she didn't go to work. But me and Nathan still both attended school.
Would she not go to work because she was injured?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you see injuries?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you see?
Different days, scratches, bruises, black eyes, busted lips, busted nose, just all depends.
Would you see property damage around the house?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you see?
Broken glass, broken plates, holes in the wall, cuts on the chairs, fingernail polish on the chairs, just different things. Just all depends.
At some point, your dad and Goldie separated, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When did that happen?
I can't give you an exact date. I know when we was living in Jonesville from when we first started, they separated one time. And he moved another woman in. They dated for a while. They broke up. We moved to Roseville. Goldie came back. They dated for a while. Then they split up again. And the same lady that he had bought before when we had moved, she came back to live with us.
Okay. The this other relationship that your father had after Goldie left, was that also a violent relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about that.
She was another one of those women, kind of sort of was like, would do things to me to get at my dad. If she would do things to me or do things to his cars to get at him, she knew that those was ways to, really get at him. Her words or their physical fights didn't get at him. So she would do the same thing.
And then they broke up and Goldie came back?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the relationship continue to be violent at that point?
I don't think so much then, no.
Okay. And by that point, Nate was a teenager, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe in high school?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point, did you become aware that Goldie had a drug addiction problem?
When I was little, I wasn't exposed to things like that. So as a child, I was not aware. My years after the fact, I was aware, but not as a child.
Tell me about Nate as a brother. What kind of brother was he to you?
He was my big brother, my best friend. Like, he's the one who taught me how to ride a bike. He's the one who taught me how to tie my shoe. Some days was worse than others, again, because I was daddy's girl, and I would want to be with him or be under him. And he'd be like, no, you a tattletale or this. So some days he was like, get somewhere, just get away. And some days we had good days. Some days we played school. Some days we just had fun together. It just all depended on his crowd, when his boys was around, or if it was just me and him. But he was my best friend.
Was there a time when Nate was assaulted by a friend? Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you aware that he was beaten with a baseball bat?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see his injuries from that
Yes, ma'am.
incident? What did you see?
I don't know exactly what his injuries was. I know that when he came back to the house, he was leaking blood from his head. That day it was my nephew's birthday. I can't remember the exact birthday.
You're talking about Jeremy?
Yes, ma'am. But the altercation took place before that, and I think he had went to the doctor, so he didn't attend the birthday party, but I did, and I was the one who went back and, told LaTanya what had happened that day.
Was there another time when Nate was assaulted when he was older as an adult, in 2009?
Yes, ma'am. So guys had broken into his home and beat him.
Did you have a chance to see him after that happened?
Yes, ma'am.
And see his injuries?
I actually went to the hospital that night.
Okay. What did you see when you saw him in the hospital?
He was bruised up and beat up kind of bad, like real bad in his face.
Mm-hmm. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Ms. Rainey, I'm going to show you what's labeled as Defense Exhibit S2. I'm sorry, I'm going to show this to the other side.
Okay.
Okay. Can you identify this, please?
Yes, ma'am. This is This is my grandmother's birthday, my dad's mom. We was at a restaurant called McCall's. Like I said, celebrating one of her birthdays. I can't remember the exact birthday, but it was one of her birthday events.
And there's a date in the bottom right-hand corner.
Yes, ma'am. It says May 15th of 2009.
And can you see Nate in that photograph?
Yes, ma'am. This is
Where
him
can I see?
right here with the red hat on.
Far left.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Move to admit.
Any objection? It's allowed for illustrative purposes.
And ask to publish it, the jury on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm moving the cursor over here to the left-hand side of the photo. Who's that?
That's my brother, Nathan.
And maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Do you see any injuries here to his face?
Yes, ma'am.
Did his left eye usually look like that?
No, ma'am. This occurred after the guys broke into his home.
And that fairly represents the injuries that you saw to your brother at that time in May of 2009, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Rainey, you were around when Nate met LaTanya
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you notice about Nate and LaTanya's relationship?
They were happy. They was, I guess, real good friends. As she said, it was once best friends.
Mm-hmm. And did you have a chance to see Nate and LaTanya together as they had children?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, me and Nate grew up in the same home. Tanya, their family church was in the neighborhood that we grew up in. Also, I would see her when she came to the house. Like I said, they was together, so I was there as they was dating and up through the course of the kids.
Mm-hmm. What did you observe about Nate as a father?
He was a great father. I always say he was the at-home wife because he was the one who was home cooking and cleaning and doing schoolwork with the kids. And, you know, he was, to me, I always say he was the wife and she was the husband. She would be at work and he would be at home with the kids. He was great with his kids.
Can you remember some things that he would do for his kids?
Like I said, he cooked for them. I know several times they was shopping. I would go over to the home and they would be doing homework on a little overhead projector, just different things. He was always doing something with his kids, whether it was at home, family events, school. Just he was always doing something with his kids.
Mm-hmm. And you know now what happened on April 9th, 2014. Is what happened there, what you know of it, is that the Nate that you know?
No, ma'am, not at all. He doesn't even raise his voice or get his hands dirty. It's definitely not him.
Mm-hmm. Those are the questions I have. Thank you so much.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Rainey. How are you today?
Good morning, I'm all right.
Okay. I need to ask you a few questions as well to follow up.
Yes, sir.
So you and the defendant are half brother and sister, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are your relative ages? How is he older, younger?
He's older than me by 6 years.
By 6 years. Okay. And so during what ages did you live in the same house with him as a child?
Since I was a baby. We grew up together.
Okay. And until he left the house?
Yes, sir.
So maybe until you were 12. Did he leave when he was 18?
I think he had left before that and came back, but
Right.
for the most part, yes, when he was 18.
And you spoke about the fighting between Goldie, who was not your mom, and your father, Nathaniel Carroll. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
And you said that you were aware of the fights, but you wouldn't witness them yourself. Generally, is that right?
Right, because I would run.
Okay. And you shared a room with the defendant.
Yes.
Would he usually stay in there with you as well? You said he comforted you in there.
Like I said, just depending how far the fight went. Some nights was better than others, but if the night was worse than worse, then, he would go in there and try to stop the situation, to break the situation up. If it, didn't seem to be so bad, then, for the most part, he would be in there trying to comfort me.
All right. Did y'all ever hide in a closet, or was it always behind the bed?
Well, he wasn't the one to hide. I was the one to hide.
Okay.
And like I said, either I would get down off my bunk and get in bed with him, or I would get on the side of our bunk beds.
But you have said that y'all the next day would always get up and go to school.
We
Is that right?
did, me and Nathan.
Okay. And that Goldie would get up and go to work the next day, typically, except for the time when she
It
was
just
injured.
depended on, yes.
All right. Now, you don't report, or you haven't testified that you or the defendant were ever assaulted. Is that right?
No, I didn't testify that, no, sir.
Okay. And the defendant graduated from high school
Yes, sir.
while you were still living in the house. And you've talked about some of the ways he cared for his children, cooked, shop, did homework with them, things like that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk about the assault by a friend with a baseball bat. You said you were aware of that assault.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how old he was when that happened?
I cannot tell you exactly how old he was. He had to been young because it was, I think, Jeremy's like second or third birthday, and Jeremy was, when he first had Jeremy, I think it was 14 or 15, so he couldn't have been. He was under 18.
Okay. And that would have made you between the ages of about 10 and 12, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if he went to the hospital?
If I'm not mistaken, he did.
Do you
Because like
know
I said, I think he went to the doctor, and I went to the birthday party, Jeremy's birthday party.
Did you witness that assault?
I was not there at the assault. No, it happened down the street from my home.
Did you see him shortly after?
Yes, he came home after the assault.
All right. So he didn't spend a night in the hospital or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. But you said you saw some bleeding, like maybe on his head?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you know, were you still sharing a room with him at that time?
Yes, sir. We shared a room the whole time.
After that assault, did he become more irritable or angry?
No, he's always a happy, silly, goofy person.
Okay. And so before that assault with the bat and after the assault with the bat, he continued to be the same person from your estimation?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you ever hear him wake up in the middle of the night screaming or recounting nightmares or anything like that?
I can't say. I probably was having nightmares myself.
Okay. But you don't recall him having any,
I can't recall.
or ever, or did you ever find yourself in a situation where you felt like he didn't know where he was or who he was?
No, sir.
And then you were asked about some guys broke into his home and beat him up, and he went to the hospital, and he was beat up in his face. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that would have been in 2009?
Yes, sir.
Do you know anything about the circumstances of that, why it happened?
No, sir, I don't.
Did he ever tell you why?
I never questioned it.
Did you know if he had been selling drugs?
That's what I was told. I don't know for a fact.
Sure. Okay. You never talked to him about it.
No, sir.
But in 2009, you know that people broke into his house and pistol whipped him, and then I guess a couple days later, it looks like maybe y'all were at a barbecue place for
Yes, sir.
a party,
For my
and he
grandmother.
was there, right?
Yes, sir.
And we saw the black eye that he had. Now, after that incident 8 years ago, did you find him to be more irritable
No, sir.
or to lose consciousness?
Not that I knew of.
Would he ever have a flashback and seem to not know where he was when you were around him?
Not when I was around him. He was grown, had his own family at home, so it's not that I was with him every day to know any of these things.
And continued to be the same person after that, in your estimation, with regards to his family and the way he treated you.
Yes, sir.
And he was able to do all of these things that were required of him as the sort of stay-at-home father in terms of caring for the children.
Yes, sir.
And you weren't aware of any incidents that he had or inability he had to do that based on the assault or the break-in.
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have anything further.
Redirect.
Ms. Rainey, how were you disciplined as a child by your parents, by Nathaniel and Goldie?
I never really got whippings. I think I got 2 beatings the whole time, like throughout my childhood. I never really got whippings. My dad was the one who could give you that look or say just those few words and you understood.
But was there some physical discipline in your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever see Nate receiving any of that physical discipline?
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you see?
I've seen him got beat with a belt. I saw him got beat with a stick. No, not necessarily a stick, but it's considered a switch, but as a child you would call it a stick.
How often would that happen?
I think I only seen him get 2 beatings as well. Like I said, it wasn't never really, had to get whoopings. Like I said, my dad could give you that look or say those words and you understood. Nate probably got it a little worse than I did, but not so many.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Yes.
briefly. But after the discipline the defendant received, did his behavior change in any way? Other than maybe to avoid the
I mean, of course he
whipping
would be
again?
angry at the time of, getting that whooping, but not where like he became angry or violent or anything like that now.
All right, great. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Further evidence?
Yes, we call Antoinette Holden.
I know what I want.
Miss Holden,
Good morning.
could you please tell the jury your name?
Antoinette Holden.
And how are you related to Nate?
That's my son. My only son.
I was going to say, so you don't have any, do you have any other children at all?
That's my only son.
Okay. Do you have any daughters?
That's my only son.
Okay. And where do you live?
I stay in Zebulon
And how long have you lived in Zebulon?
about 3 years now.
And how long have you lived in Wake County?
All my life.
And so it would be clear during our discussion, what do you call Nate?
Lorenzo.
And is that his middle name?
That's what I named him.
Okay. And this is his full name is Nathan Lorenzo Holden?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who is Lorenzo's father?
Nathaniel Curl.
Okay. And how old were you when you met Nathaniel Carroll?
10 or 11.
And do you remember how old you were when you were pregnant with Nate?
15.
With 15. And how old were you when Lorenzo was born?
16.
And where were you staying with when you became pregnant with Lorenzo? Who were you staying with?
I was staying with my mom and dad, but I moved with Nathaniel and his mama
Why did you do that?
because my daddy didn't appreciate I was pregnant.
Okay. And how did he react to that, the fact that you were pregnant?
It didn't matter. I moved with Nathaniel Curl mama
Okay. And that was because your father was upset?
because I was pregnant at that age.
Okay. And how was Lorenzo as a child?
A laughing child, peeing everywhere.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. What was that?
I said a laughing child, peeing everywhere.
Okay.
We had to buy Pampers, in other words. Yeah.
Okay. Was he, as he grew older, was he basically a good child?
Yep, A.B. on the roll. So,
Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with his father, Nathaniel. Were the two of you ever married?
common law married. We stayed together 34 years.
You stayed together for 34 years?
Yes, we did.
Was Nathaniel always, and you call his dad Nathaniel?
I call him Nate.
You call his dad Nate?
Yeah. Or Boot.
Or Boot?
Or Boot, yeah.
Okay. Well, just so there won't be any confusion, I may call him Nate's dad.
That'll work.
Okay. Was Nate's dad always faithful during your relationship with him?
I ain't understand you.
Was he always faithful? Did he ever see other women?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How often would that happen?
Frequency.
Did he ever have children outside of your relationship?
We got two.
Do you two ever have arguments about that?
Yeah, when I go to drinking.
Okay. Well, how often do those arguments ever turn into physical fights?
Sometimes.
Okay. During those physical fights, would he ever hit you?
Mm-hmm.
Did he hit you with his fist?
And I hit him back with my fist.
Okay, the both of you would hit each other?
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever scream as a result of the fights?
I holler sometimes if he hit me hard.
Did these fights ever leave bruises
Sometimes.
on you?
Mm.
Are we going to try to introduce these? Okay. Did your family know about the fact that you would have these fights?
All the time.
How did your family know about them?
Because when they see me, they already know Big Nate done beat me up.
And how did they know that?
Because I have bruises on me.
How often were these fights?
Like twice a month, something like that.
Around twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
And did they happen throughout? I said, did you stayed with Nate's dad for 34 years? Did they happen throughout the time you all were together?
I ain't never stayed with Nate dad. I stayed with Nate's mama.
Okay, well, I'm talking about Lorenzo's dad. You stayed with Lorenzo's dad for 34 years.
I stayed with Lorenzo dad mama, Emma Curl. We stayed with her.
Okay. Well, you were in a relationship with with your son's dad for 34 years?
My first one,
Yes. And how often did these fights happen regularly throughout these 34 years?
like I said, like twice a month.
Okay, and that occurred throughout the relationship.
Not really.
Okay. Did it happen when Nate was a child?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did it happen when he was in kindergarten?
I can't call.
Okay.
I can't think back that far.
Was Lorenzo upset about the fact that you would get into these fights?
Yep.
How could you tell that?
Because he'll say, Mom, is you all right?
Do you ever remember a time when he tried to stop the fighting?
Yes, sir.
What do you remember about that?
He just said, Dad, stop hitting my mama.
When Lorenzo was growing up in the home with you, were you drinking?
Yes, sir.
How much would you have to drink?
About 3 beers after I get off work.
Okay. You'd have 3 beers when you got home from work.
Yes,
Was
sir.
that daily?
Every other day, because I don't want Beat to know I drink. I have to drink before he get home.
You had to drink before you came home?
Yep.
Why did you have to?
Because he didn't like me drinking.
Who didn't like you drinking?
Lorenzo daddy.
Okay. And so you wanted to drink before he got home?
I tried to drink 2 beers before he got there.
Okay. When did you start drinking?
When I was about 9 or 10 years old.
And did you continue to drink after you met
Yes, sir.
Lorenzo's dad?
Yes, sir.
You continued to drink after Lorenzo was born?
Yes, sir. I didn't drink while I was pregnant.
Okay. Did you, would you sometimes also drink along with beer, liquor?
Sometimes. Occasion where I was at.
Did you, when you, at some point you and Lorenzo's dad broke up, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Remember about how old you were when that happened?
When Lynette graduated, I left home.
Okay. And did you start at that point using some other types of drugs?
Yep, smoking crack.
How often did you use crack?
About like twice a week.
As a result of both your drinking and using crack, did you ever seek help?
Yep, my son took me
Okay.
2 or 3 times.
And where did he take you?
The women healing place.
Was that an inpatient rehab center?
Yep. Yes, sir.
And so was your son encouraging you to get help for these drug problems?
Yes, sir.
Did sometimes you go try to get, start to go to a rehab center and then couldn't, and then decided not to go?
I went, but I left on my own.
Okay. And who would drive you there?
Lorenzo.
Are you still drinking?
Occasional.
What about using crack?
Nope.
Don't use crack at all now?
Every now and then they gonna say I don't use it, but I don't use it like I used to.
Okay. Just using crack now occasionally?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. If I may approach Your Honor.
Yes.
Yeah. Could you put the...
And Big Nate car and Lil Nate.
Little Nate of Lorenzo.
Yeah, Lorenzo.
These photographs accurately depict Lorenzo and the other people in these pictures.
They're my three sisters, including me and Big Nate and Lil Nate.
And are these accurate? Are these pictures accurate? How these people appear?
Yes, they are.
John, I would need to admit defendant exhibits S3, S4, and S5.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
They're allowed.
Okay, and Ms. Holden, step down and show these pictures to the jury.
If you'll just walk slowly in front of the jurors, and please don't speak unless you're asked a question.
I'm going to hand you S3. Show.
That's my sister.
Ma'am, don't speak unless you're asked a question.
Yeah.
I can't tell them who they is.
No, ma'am, just unless you're asked a question.
Well, who is that a picture of?
That's my three sisters, and my son, Lil Nate.
If you could just show the jurors there without saying anything else. And now I'm going to show you what's been marked. Defendant's exhibit S4. Can you tell who that is?
That's my son, Lil Nate, and he was first born.
Okay, if you could just show the jurors without making any comment.
I'll say that.
If you could show who's that picture in S5.
That's me, Big Nate, and Lil Nate, when he was first born.
Okay, could you show that to the jurors?
Did you ever get to observe Lorenzo as a father?
Did I what?
Ever get to see him as a father?
Yes, sir.
How was he as a father?
A great father.
And how was he as a son?
A great son.
And did you love him?
More than I love myself.
Right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, ma'am, you said the fights would happen between you and,
My name Antoinette Holden.
yes, ma'am, Ms. Holden, I know.
Yeah.
But ma'am, you would, fight with Lorenzo or the defendant's father, you said about twice a month,
Sometimes.
but y'all didn't fight every day,
No, sir.
is that correct? And, did you care for your son, do you believe adequately?
All my kids.
Sure. But he was your only son, I think you testified.
Yes, he is.
And although you began drinking when you were 9 or 10, you did not drink while you were pregnant with the defendant.
Or smoke cigarettes. No, sir.
All right, great. And when he was born, he was of a healthy weight, is that right?
Exactly.
And he developed appropriately with the pediatrician. You took him to those visits.
Yes, sir.
And you said that he was an honor roll student.
A be on the road student. He was a teacher one time.
Yes, ma'am. And he was not a behavior problem at school, was that right?
No, sir.
And would you attend parent-teacher conferences for him?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you would help him with his homework and provide him the support he needed?
He didn't need no help because I already know how to do it.
All right. But you were there to provide support
Yes, I
for him if he
was.
needed it. And regardless of your problems with his father, he was also there throughout his childhood, is that right?
All the time.
All the time. And would he provide what he needed in terms of clothes and food and shelter?
All the time.
Do you feel that he was well taken care of as he was growing up?
All the time.
Yes, ma'am. And in terms of him with his children, you never saw him beat them?
No, sir.
Okay. And did you ever see the defendant lose consciousness or act like he didn't know where he was?
Sir.
Were you aware of what his drinking habits were?
What are you talking about?
How much he would have to drink when he got older?
Who, my son?
Yes, ma'am.
He didn't drink like that.
All right. Or his marijuana use?
He ain't smoke like that.
When you say not like that, what do you mean?
He smoke occasionally when he go out. After he done attend to the kids and all, and cooked and all that, and he go out and chill, and then he come back home.
All right. So I guess a social smoker and drinker, is that right?
Exactly.
But your testimony, were you here for the testimony about the day of the events for which he's been convicted? April 9th, when he was with Jeremy, I think, at Cousin Jason's house?
I was in rehab.
Just 2 weeks ago?
Oh, no. Yes, I've been here for the last 3 weeks.
All right. All right.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, you heard testimony that he smoked and drank that day while he was caring for JT.
I'll say that again.
Did you hear that testimony that he had
No.
drank and smoked on the day that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Lynette kept his kids more than Tanya did.
Move to strike.
Sustained. Just answer the questions you're asked, ma'am.
I will.
Thank you.
Here it is.
And all these people in the courtroom, they are friends and family of the defendant, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So he's had a large group of support around him all his life, is that correct?
All the time.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further. No, I'm sorry. I take that back, Your Honor. Just a couple more questions. Since your son has been incarcerated, how often have you seen him?
Every time I make appointments with him, and since I've been up at this courthouse.
Okay. So you've seen him every day for the last couple of weeks at least, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And at the jail, you have to call them and make an appointment, but they can set up a time for you to go visit with them?
Yes, sir.
And how long do you get to visit with him?
Every time I make a call,
All right.
if he ain't booked up,
All right. And do you ever get letters from him or send letters to him? You
yes,
do?
sir.
How often?
Twice a month.
Okay. And he can tell you what he's doing, what he's thinking, what he's feeling, right?
All the time.
And you can do the same with him, is that right?
Sure can.
Okay. All right. And you value that time that you get to have with him, don't you?
All the time.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing further.
Redirect.
When you visited him, is that through a video?
I talked to him on the phone.
You talked to him on the phone, and the visits are through video camera?
I talked to him on the telephone.
Okay. But when you see him, do you see him through a video camera? Are you face
It's
to
like
face
I'm talking on the TV.
on the
I
TV?
talked to him yeah.
Okay. Not a contact visit.
No, can I touch him? Can I please just touch my son? I ain't gonna do nothing but hug him and walk back there.
I need you to answer the question.
I hear you.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Anything further for the state?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Love you, Renzo. Gonna be alright, boo.
Further evidence?
Yes, Your Honor, we would call Bertha Posley.
Ma'am, if you would please stand, place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Put stickers on there.
Mr. Brown?
Yes. Could you please tell, good morning, Ms. Posley.
Good morning, everybody.
Could you please tell the jury your name? Would you need some water?
Yes, please.
If I may approach you.
Yes.
Would you reach the water that's next door? I can come forward.
Oh, okay. Good morning. My name is Bertha Posley.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming here. How are you related to Nate?
I'm his aunt.
Are you, we just heard Goldie testify. Are you her sister?
Yes, I am.
And how old are you compared to Goldie?
A year. I'm 51. She's 50.
Okay. What do you call Nate?
Lorenzo.
Okay, and I'll try to remember to, in my questions to you, to refer to him as Lorenzo.
Okay.
Where do you live?
I stay in Raleigh
And how long have you lived in Wake County?
all my life.
And where do you work?
Nightdale High School. I'm a teacher assistant.
And what sorts of things do you do as a teacher assistant?
I work right now. This year I'm in a testing center, but I usually work with OCS kids, Occupation Course of Study.
Okay. What does that mean?
I work with kids with behavior problems, ADD and ASS, ADD kids. Attention deficit disorder and things like that.
How many siblings are in your family?
I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers now. Was 3, but 1 deceased.
Okay.
My baby brother.
Could you tell me just generally what their age ranges are?
We're usually a year apart, and my older sister, she's probably 3 years older than all of us, but we're a year apart, all of us. Somewhere within that range.
I'd like to ask you some questions about the relationship between Goldie and Nate's and Lorenzo's father. What do you call Lorenzo's father, first of all?
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel, okay. So when we talk about Nathaniel during your testimony, you're going to be talking about Nathaniel Carroll?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember about how old Goldie was when she met Nathaniel?
We were young. In the neighborhood, like she said, around the age, but we was young, about 12, 13, I remember meeting him around that age. We was neighborhood playmates,
And do you remember about how old Goldie was when she got pregnant
I
with?
think it's about 14, 15.
Okay. What was your family's reaction to her getting pregnant?
My father was very upset because he tried to keep us from, getting pregnant at an early age and just he was real strict, and he was really upset, And once he found out Goldie was pregnant, him and Nathaniel didn't get along that well. Nathaniel kept wanting to come to the house to see Goldie, but my father didn't want him to. So one evening, he came to see Goldie, and him and my dad had an altercation, and Goldie left with him. And we didn't see that much of her after that.
Who was she, who did she start staying with?
Nathaniel and his family.
Okay. And did she stay with Nathaniel and his family throughout her pregnancy?
Yes, sir, she did.
Did you see how Nathaniel treated Goldie during the pregnancy?
Well, I wouldn't say during the pregnancy, but I saw him after the pregnancy. I didn't see a lot of my sister when she was pregnant because they stayed away from the house. After she had the baby, I started seeing her, We stayed in the country, and it was like a corner store where we would see Nathaniel and Goldie at, and they would have the baby with them. Okay. So that's when I saw a lot of her, a little more than what I was seeing of her,
Did you ever see any evidence that during the pregnancy or afterwards that he seemed to be controlling of her?
Yeah, he was very controlling. He was very controlling doing that, because when he, a couple times I did see him, when he wanted to go, she had to move when he said move, and she was adamant about getting there and being prompt when he wanted her to leave,
Let's talk about as they got, were Nathaniel and Goldie ever married?
No.
Okay.
No, they never did.
But did they stay together for many years?
Yes, long time.
Did you ever see any signs that they were fighting between them?
Yes. And I came, me and my other husband, my first husband, Roger. One occasion we came there, I can remember when they was fighting, and I jumped in it, and my husband got me off Nathaniel because they was fighting. I remember several incidents. I remember fussing and fighting. Nathaniel and Goldie fought a lot. They fought a lot.
How could you tell that they had fought a lot?
I was there some of the times. We used to play cards called spades. We used to play spades a lot on the weekend. And me and my husband used to go over to their house, you know, and they would get in it because Goldie didn't want Nathaniel to leave, and Nathaniel left anyway. You know, they left anyway.
Did you ever tell that they had been fighting if you hadn't been witnessing it?
I didn't hear that.
Oh, could you ever tell that they had been fighting if you didn't personally witness the fighting?
Yes, my sister was beat up badly. Oh, yes. And she had black eyes, busted lip, and she had bruises all over her, you know. And we tried to talk to Goldie so many times to leave, but she never would leave.
Why not?
She loved Nathaniel. She said she called it love. Wasn't love. She stayed with him. He was her first love. And she continued to stay with him. She just continued to stay.
Were you aware if Lorenzo was aware of these fights?
He was little. He was little at the time. But as years went on and he got older, I'm sure he was aware of those fights because he was there, you know, he was there, you know, and he wanted to help his mother, but he couldn't help his mother because he was little when they did start. He was little.
Do you know about how old he was when they started? The best that you can tell?
I remember 5. I remember 5 years old because I had a daughter, and each time we would come over to break the fights up, I had to bring my daughter with me, and me and my husband, and I would sit her in the bag with Ktina and little Nate. I would sit them in the bag while we tried to reason with Nathaniel and Goldie, me and my husband, Audrey.
Is that successful?
Sometimes it was, and we sat there until they calmed down, and Nathaniel would usually end up leaving just so the altercations would just calm down. He would just end up leaving. And then sometime they were not, you know. We end up just leaving. We called the police, you know. Several times we called the police. Sometimes over at my mom's house we would call the police. But it never changed. It never changed. She stayed in the relationship with him.
What would happen when you would call the police?
Well, they would come and Goldie would say that nothing happened. She wouldn't press charges, so there was nothing they could do if she didn't press charges. So it kept happening over and over and over, and eventually the police would say, look, ma'am, if you keep calling us and don't press any charges, you're just wasting your time, you know, which she was. And they just it was just terrible.
Let's talk about issues regarding your sister and drinking. Do you know about how old she was when she started drinking?
No, she was drinking, as she said, about 10 years old. I didn't know, you know, but we all did at 12, I know. My dad was a farmer. We were farm girls, you know. We grew up on a farm. And my dad used to take and buy beer and stuff for the men helpers that helped him, you know. And we was as kids about that age sneaking it, you know. We was sneaking and sip some beer. Wasn't like we just drunk it every time he bought it, but me and my other sisters, we would just sip it, you know. And we were not big drinkers. We didn't drink to get drunk. We just drunk it because we was exposed to it, you know. We saw that was what my father and mother was doing at the time. And maybe Goldie snuck and drunk it, you know. I don't know. I've never seen her sneak and do it, but maybe she did. You know.
So you don't know about her drinking at 10, but you knew about her drinking at 12.
Yes. Yes.
As the years progressed, did you see signs of her drinking increasing?
Yes, I did. I really did. Sir?
Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, she would drink all the time. I've never known nobody to drink to go to work, but my sister did. You know, she would go to work. She could drink 2 and 3 beers, like she said, pop it and go to work, you know, and never got caught. But she did. And I think it came from all what she was going through, you know. She never did come back home. And
did you ever see signs of her using drugs?
yes.
Could you tell us about that?
She was really violent sometimes. My mom, when I did move out of the house, my mom would call me sometimes telling me to come over because Goldie was over at the house acting up. And I witnessed her acting really crazy, you know, drinking. My mom had to put her up. That was during the time my mom and dad was going through something themselves. And I had to put her out the house, you know. My brother was in the service. My other brother was out of town, and my other brother, Sylvester, had deceased. And Goldie was at the house acting up, and I was the only one around. So I had to put her out the house, and it took everything I had to get her out the house, you know.
You remember about how old she was when that was happening?
Yeah, she was about 30 then. I think she's about 30, in her 30s. Yes.
After she and Nathaniel, Lorenzo's dad, after they broke up, where did she live?
Where did he go to live?
Did she
Everywhere. She lived wherever, you know, because she had so many friends. She had so many people wanting to take her in just to get her out of that situation. Just to get her out of that situation. She had friends all over. On her job, in the neighborhood. People knew her all over, you know. She's a good person.
Was she kind of at that point living on the streets?
Yes. Yes.
And what was Lorenzo's reaction to his mother living on the streets?
He was upset. He was upset. He was really upset. He wanted us to get her some help, and that's what we did when we could. And, you know, we just tried to support him through all of that because his mom had a problem. And sometimes she would seek help, and sometimes she wouldn't, you know. It was hard on him. It was really hard on him.
During his senior year of high school, did Lorenzo ever come stay with you?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And that was after his parents had split up?
Yes, sir.
Did he help when he was there with the cooking?
Yes. He knew how to cook. Yes, he did.
Did he help with the cleaning?
Yes, and helped me with my little girl, you know.
Excuse me. Did you ever see Nate as a father?
Did I ever see him?
As a
Meaning-
father to his kids?
Yes, I did.
How was he as a father?
He was a good father to his kids. You know, he provided. He had food and a shelter, always a place. Nick always had a place to stay for his kids. And he always had food, kept food. Yeah.
Did you see him after he and LaTanya separated?
Lorenzo?
Yes.
I did. Excuse me. I did. I saw him. It was during Christmas because I was getting ready to get remarried, and I saw him during that time. And he was telling me, he called me B. He said, "B, me tell you, split up." And I said, "What? I can't believe that." And he said, "Yeah, me tell you, split up." And he said, she's got custody of the kids, and I want to see my kids. He was really upset about They split up.
All right,
And I asked him, I wanted to get up with Tanya and talk with her. But I never could get up with Tanya.
Your Honor, if I may approach.
Yes, sir.
I'm showing you what has been marked appendix exhibits. I believe it's going to be S6 and S11,
S12.
S12. And I'm going to show you some photographs. Look through each of these, and if you look at the number in the back, and tell me if you recognize. I'll show you it's S6. You recognize that photo?
I do.
And who's that photograph?
Lorenzo.
What?
Lorenzo.
Okay. You know about how old he is at that time?
It looks like he's about 5. About 5, maybe 7. About 5, excuse me, about 5 or 7.
All right, the next photograph.
Yes.
By that number.
Yes. And it's him when he's a baby. I guess he's about 2 or 3. It's like
That's S8.
Lorenzo and Tanya.
Okay, you know about how old they are at that point?
They were young and they got married, so it was probably about in the 20s, I guess.
Would that be a picture of the wedding picture?
Yes.
And the next photograph?
Picture Lorenzo and looked like one of his cousins. Not for sure about the lady. Looks young there too. I guess he was about in his 20s.
The next one, if you could identify that photograph's number photographic.
And Jeremy, his son, and Lorenzo.
And can you tell us what number that is on the back?
On the number, 510.
Right, of S10?
Yes,
Yes.
it's 10.
And the next one would be S11, if you could look at that, make sure that it's S11.
Yes, Lorenzo and his
What's that?
Lorenzo and his mother, my sister,
Right.
and it's 511.
And the final picture? That's S12.
Picture of my sister and her grandbabies.
Okay. And do all those pictures fairly and accurately depict Lorenzo at the time that the pictures were taken?
What do you mean depict him?
Does it accurately show the picture, how they look?
Yes. Happy?
And what do you think would help you with your testimony?
What you mean now?
Do you think it will help you assist the jury in telling what you have to say?
Meaning what you saying? I'm lost.
Show the jury a picture. If you think it would be if the judge allows us to do that.
What do you want me to do? I'm still
This is-
confused. Tell
These
you what
accurate
type of,
pictures?
yes, these are accurate pictures, yes. Golden, her grandbabies, my sister had grandbabies,
Any
yes.
objection
No,
to
Your
the
Honor.
admission?
Huh?
They're admitted for illustrative purposes.
Okay, I'm sorry for the confusion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could I have her show those photographs?
Yes, sir.
What I'll do
You
is
want
I'll
me-
hand you, I'm gonna ask you to stand, if you could stand down. What I'll do is I'll give you a photograph, identify it, and ask you who it is, and then I'm gonna ask you to just silently show the picture to the jury after I ask you questions. The first one I'm showing you is S6. Could you tell me who that's picture? You got how old you is? Okay, you just silently show that to the jury. Thank you. I'm now showing you what's been marked, what's been accepted as defendant's exhibit S7. Could you show, who's that a picture of?
My nephew right here.
About how old?
Jeremy. He's about 2 or 3.
Okay. Show that to the jurors. Now showing you, it's been marked as defendant's exhibit SA. Could you show, tell her that, what's that picture of?
It's like a giant Lorenzo. It's like he's.
Is that when they're about to get married?
Yes.
Can you just show that sign to the jury? Now showing you it's been marked as accepted as defendant's exhibit S9. What's that a picture of?
His cousins.
Show that to the jury. I'm now showing you it's been marked as defendant's S10. What is that a picture of?
Lorenzo, his
Good. I'm showing you this now. Defendant's S11, you can say the next picture.
my nephew and my sister.
Which sister is that?
Go with my baby sister.
Finally, I'm showing you defendant's S10. What's that picture?
My sister. Babies.
May you proceed.
Ma'am, do you love Lorenzo?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination, Mr. Lively.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Posley, did you speak with anyone to kind of give them a statement before this trial started?
I did.
Okay. Was that Miss Sandra Broughton-Cozart?
Yes, sir.
Is she in the courtroom today?
Miss Sonia. No, I don't see her.
Okay, that's fine.
No.
But and it was your understanding that that was for the mitigation file?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I think you reported to her that your own parents fought. Is that right?
My own parents what?
You and your sister Goldie, that y'all's parents fought as well. Is that correct?
It's fault. I'm not understanding.
They fought each other.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And did y'all see the physical violence between them?
My parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And would you characterize that as bad or upsetting to you?
Yes, it was.
All right. You're remarried now,
I am.
and you say that you're a teaching assistant.
I am.
Okay. And is that in an elementary school here in Wake County?
High school.
A
Said
high
high
school.
school. Yes, sir.
Great. And you don't have any criminal record, do you?
No, sir. You can't have one.
Right. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Now, you mentioned that, or I think you may have also mentioned to Ms. Broughton Kozar that after the separation, you actually attended court with the defendant
I did.
over the custody issue. Is that right?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And supported him in that way.
I did.
And he lived with you for a time. When he was growing up, did you know him to be a discipline problem at school,
No, sir.
or get into fights,
No, sir.
or be generally irritable?
No, sir.
All right. Did you ever find him to lose consciousness or act like he didn't know where he was?
I recall that when he was a little boy. The reason I said it was he was about 3 then, 2 or 3. I remember Goldie bring him over to the house one time, and he hadn't seen us in a while because we didn't see him that much when he was little coming up. And she set him on top of the washing machine and told him, said, BJ, watch him when I use the bathroom. And I said, okay. And he just screamed to the top of his head because he really didn't know me that good. And he passed out, and I popped and bring him back because he turned blue. And I said, girl, come get this boy in here. He didn't know us. He was scared of me because he didn't know me. He was afraid of me,
Sure, and that might be normal.
That
for
was
a 2-year-old.
normal. Yeah, that's the only time I can say that he passed out.
Okay.
Yeah, that was normal.
And he lived with you during his senior year of high school.
Yes.
You didn't observe any of those things after
No,
those
sir.
times.
None of those times.
Okay. And you said that maybe you tried to talk to LaTanya, but you never sort of heard her side of things once the separation began.
No, I didn't, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry what happened. I love Tanya, too. Tanya's a good girl, too, and her family is, too.
And you don't. And I think the last thing you said is you don't understand this. Basically, what happened.
I don't. I didn't.
Have you been able to visit the defendant while he's been in jail?
No, I couldn't bring myself to even come.
Okay. And you've just been in court for today because you
Yes. Yes.
And I understand.
Yeah.
How emotional
It's
you are.
just been too hard.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, ma'am. I don't have anything further.
Redirect. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. We're going to take a 15-minute recess, and we'll resume at 20 minutes till 12. Members of the jury, please recall all the instructions I've given you. Please leave your notepads in the chair and gather in the deliberation room at 20 minutes till 12. Everyone else, please remain seated.
Going to give you this.
All right, outside the presence of the jury, before we break, I want to just say a few things to the folks seated in the gallery. First of all, I want to thank you for your courtesy throughout this trial and the professional way that you all have conducted yourself. I know that these trials are emotional and that emotions are high, but I need to ask you to do a couple things. One is if you can't control your emotions in the courtroom while a witness is testifying, I'd ask you to just step outside and find a place where you can calm yourself down so that we don't distract the jury. It's very important in order to ensure a fair trial that the jurors be able to hear everything that this witness is saying and not be distracted by folks in the gallery who are upset or emotional. The second thing is it's also very important during the breaks and recess that you not be standing outside talking about the case or expressing emotion about the case while jurors are around. It's very important that you not communicate, that they not be walking by while you're in an emotional state. So again, if during recesses you can't control your conversation or your emotions, I would ask that you go somewhere where jurors are not available or around. You know, go to the far end of the hall away from where the jurors might be, or step into a restroom, or otherwise just help us make sure that the jurors continue to be insulated from any external factors in this case. We need them to focus on the things that are going on in this courtroom. So with all of that said, again, thank you for your conduct throughout this trial. I'm asking you to continue that professional conduct for the remainder of this trial. Is there anything that we need to take up?
No, sir.
All right. Then we'll recess until 20 minutes till 12.
No, the only thing I have is there's this defendant's case and there's this
Blackshear report and CV.